So welcome everybody. This is it's been quite a day. So I'm Toddy. If you're not tired of seeing me yet or hearing my name yet, that's who I am. I'm part of the panel that put this together. We've had an amazing team that put this together today. And I'm wanting to introduce you to a couple of ladies who have inspired me. I mean, I think the whole day has been really inspirational. But we're going to have a chat with some ladies who are in business. They've been in this industry for, I don't know, probably each of us, all of us here, probably been in this business for 20 years. And so I call us all veterans of learning and development. But we're going to chat a little bit today about some of the things that have happened, really focused on COVID and resilience. And we really want to talk about this. And our views are our own, but about what it's taken to kind of build that resilience and really kind of take care of ourselves and our well-being, and at the same time, our families and our careers. Over the last crazy year plus, it just seems like it keeps dragging on and on. And so I want to introduce you to Lisa Goldstein and Laura Payette. So I have, the sad part for me is sitting here remotely, and the last time I sat with the two of you was together in a lunch spot in Denver. So we're hoping we can do this again, like together sometime. That's my fondest hope. I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves and give our audience a little orientation about who you are. Laura, I'll start with you.
Sure. Hi. I don't know how to respond to in the chat. Like, are there emoticons and things you can do?
You can actually click on the things in chat, and to the right, there's a little arrow, so you can actually reply. Oh. So that's kind of cool. And I'll just kind of keep I'll watch for this as well. But we're excited to have you here, so I'll let you roll.
I'll do a quick intro and then over to you, Lisa. So I'm Laura Payette, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm practicing. And I work currently for Microsoft and sit in a talent management team, actually, for one of the largest engineering organizations within Microsoft. Just to give you a sense of size, the all-up employee count in that engineering organization is north of 50,000 at this point. And our talent management team looks after, all of the talent management needs within that group. I say all, but, as many as we can. And my role is specifically looking after leader development. And I'm currently based in California, have not been here the whole pandemic. I'm sure that we'll get into that. Married, 2 kids, definitely navigating the work-life balance, if you want to call it that. And every day is an adventure. So Lisa, over to you.
It's so interesting how Toddy, you started off by saying, like, we're all in Denver at the same time. We've all been on fantastic journeys over the last couple of decades. And now it feels like we just span the country now. So I've moved a few times over the last couple of years, once in the middle of the pandemic. And now located in Central Florida, just below Orlando, and working for Accenture. And like Laura, it's tackling a huge organization, the full organization, beyond just my group, but the entire company is at about 500,000 employees. And it's absolutely massive at the scale. And 2 kids, and husband works in the airlines. And it's been interesting times with my youngest switching schools twice, once in the middle of the pandemic. And it's hard, for little kiddos to make friends in the middle of a virtual world. So all sorts of great things to dive into and explore during this really interesting year.
Yeah, it's just too much for my mind right now. I mean, we moved in 2019 to relocate back to New England again for work, and we ended up probably the closest thing we came to that kind of stress is we lived in a trailer for 4 months, a travel trailer with 4 dogs, but no kids, so all crazy. So I'm just curious about the impact. And Lisa, it's moving, like that transitions, like what kinds of impacts did that have on you in terms of, this last year's minutes? So.
Yeah, it's interesting moving in the middle of a pandemic. It's also during that time where we said, stay 6 feet away from people. So, doing things like, so when we first moved, our first move was temporary. We knew it was, and so we were renting a home, and then we were going to start looking for a house, and we were this close to making an offer on a purchase when COVID hit. So, and we ended up staying still for another year, or almost a whole full year. But anyway, we had renters who needed to come in and take over our home when we were going to stop renting and purchase the home that we're in now. So between that and moving our home and the time period where you don't want people, within 6 feet and they're in your like personal space, that was awkward. We had, again, the kiddo who had to change schools twice and figure out virtual learning, and things like grade suffering because we're trying to figure out what it means to learn in a virtual space, and husband's nervousness because he works for an airline, which of course is one of the hardest hit industries, has been during COVID. So at least one of us needed to keep our job. Thankfully he's hung in there and everything's going well, and travel's starting to pick back up. So feeling less nervous about that over time, but anything can still happen any day. And I think that, we're just trying our best to stay positive and survive and figure things out as we go along. And Laura, you've moved too.
We have also moved. Somewhat different situation, but I lost both of my in the last year, not COVID related. One expected, one not expected. And, that was really challenging. Challenging in a normal year, and especially challenging during a COVID year. And my in-law passed away in May last year, coming up on a year. And that was still early on in the pandemic, where, we sat down with the girls, and they were terrified for my husband to even get in the car and drive down from Washington to California, where she was, to see her and be able to say goodbye, because they thought, oh my God, what if everybody gets COVID? And so just navigating the feelings around the last year, professionally, personally, and it's all tangled up together, has been really challenging. And, the silver lining in that has been the authenticity, and really just sort of giving people space to really be themselves and feel what they're feeling and bring that into the day-to-day way that we're living now. And there are challenges with that too, right? Because it requires trust. It requires certain relationships that not everybody's quite ready for or open to. And so there has been a lot of positive that's come out of that, and things that frankly we're still working through. Lost both of our in-laws, lost a couple of pets. Navigating, Lisa, what you said with moving, right? And so we're sort of kind of in this limbo situation, because actually we bounced between Washington and California twice last year. And we're currently in California in my in-laws' house that, is going through the whole estate process now, right? And so our stuff's in storage in Washington, right? So we're kind of like living in limbo. And we actually, because we knew that was going to be the situation once we saw where things were going, we pulled the girls out of school and are homeschooling them. So yes, I'm working full time and I'm homeschooling my kids. Don't ask me how that's going, because it really depends on the day. It is insane sometimes. And at the same time, it's allowed me to have conversations with my girls and to really bring in current events and pieces of history from a totally new lens. And I am learning so much. And it's been really great and really hard. And so, the latter is it's been hard for every single one of you who's sitting here listening to us, right? If we could ask you all, I, without a doubt, know that you've been through your own hard challenges and still are probably going through them. And I think the thing we can all anchor on is empathy for each other, and really just remembering that no one's moved through this period unscathed. No one, whether you've moved or not, right? And maybe you want to move, but can't. And that's real too. Maybe you're stuck in a space that's really tiny and you're like, get me out of here, right? And that's real too. I worked in the laundry room for a few months. So I get it, and the more empathy we can have for one another, the more we're going to pull through this and come out stronger on the other side. And that doesn't mean it's an easy path, right? So I'm learning every day and trying to ground myself in gratitude and being thankful for what I do have, recognizing my privilege and my responsibility to do more for others at the same time. And this idea that two things that seem at very opposite ends of the spectrum can be true at the same time. That polarity I'm learning to sit with that in the last year. I'd be curious, Lisa or Tati, what are some of the things that you've kind of taken out of the last year? Maybe some lessons learned, things that have, you're seeing differently at this point.
Well, first, I want to comment back on what you said, Laura, because about people. I mean, I'm so grateful to have both of you in my life. When you call me, I feel energized. I'm so happy to be connected with you. There's a bunch of people that are hanging out with us here in the chat that are also our friends. I'm so grateful for everyone. Our network is so valuable. Yeah. I mean, I almost think of it, I've got to brainstorm with my buddies, but it's a survival. It's about not being alone. It's about having each other, and can't agree with you more, Laura, about exactly that. And then to better answer your question, I think my number one thing, okay, so Gallup strengths, according to Gallup, my number one strength is positivity, according to that test. But I would say, I don't think I was born that way. I don't think I was made that way. I think I agree with Robin Roberts, a newscaster. I was watching her masterclass on masterclass.com. And she says in that masterclass that optimism is a muscle. And I believe this wholeheartedly, that you have to practice positivity. Now, granted, first I might have to turn to one of you and vent first. I think I have to get rid of some negative stuff first and cry it out or talk it out and get rid of some space so I can make space to work on that muscle. So then now that I've vented out, now I can say, okay, we're past that negative bit. Now, how can we make the most of this? How can we turn this positive? How can we see this glass half full and get right back to the thing we were saying a minute ago, which is brainstorm with my buddies to say, I don't know, have you ever been through this? What would you do?
Yeah, no, it's part of the process, I think, is to kind of vent through it. I can tell you, I did not come from a positive, optimistic background at all. I grew up in a very negative family. So to become a positive person does require you have to actively be developing that. You have to start looking at, and so Heather talked this morning about reframing things. And actually Sarah Elkins talked about reframing as well. And so it's taken me years, and, here I am in my 50s having to figure out, okay, so how do I reframe this and look at the positives that came out of it? I had a similar situation. My daughter actually relocated just before all this happened as well. She grew up in Mass, went to school in Oregon, came back to Mass for work. And, so we were glad we were going to be here, but now I'm looking at this entire thing. So she's away from her friends. She's kind of stuck with us. But on that same note, I feel really grateful that we all ended up back here at the same time, because I don't know how things would have been for her being here alone. Because I've got my spouse and I got the dogs, but I feel like it's been a really good thing for me to be able to be there for her and for her to be there for us. She's part of our cluster. And so, again, looking at, well, maybe it was meant to happen this way, or maybe, it's just finding the positive of it. So,
and at the same time, and I'm all for optimism, I'm with you. And as I tell my girls, feel your feelings.
Yeah.
Right? You're feeling, each one of us, every person on this call, feel your feelings because they're real.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out how to process through them. And that's been another learning in the last year. Not like a big aha. I mean, we know things and we forget that we know them when we relearn them. And one of the things for me was, making really time for my mental health. And, I think it takes many of us, we have to sort of hit the wall, right? We know rationally, I should focus on this. I should make this a priority. Everyone's, talking about it. But it takes us personally sometimes hitting the wall to really go, and it took me breaking down. Yeah, smack. Right?
Smack for sure.
It took me actually breaking down at work back in December one day when it's just the stress. It was just all too much. And I went, I'm an idiot. And I mean that in the loveliest of terms, right? I have access to EAP at work. I've got access to therapy sessions What is stopping me from picking up the phone or filling out the form and leveraging this?
Yeah.
And it took actually not just breaking down at work, it actually took having a conversation with my manager who, sort of gently nudged and said, hey, remember, we have these benefits, like they're there for us to use. And it was like, yep, they are. And that was the nudge that I needed, right? So for anyone listening, right? If you are feeling like, if you feel like you could stand up and go, me too, I see you and I hear you. And I would encourage you, think about, how can you take advantage of focusing on your mental health before you break down at work, right? And whether you have access to an EAP or not, there are resources out there that are available to all of us. And it doesn't have to just be therapy, right? For me, I process my mental health physically, also runner. And I run as much for my mental health as for my physical health, or just get outside and hike and walk. So whatever it is that you do, listening to music, maybe you're an artist and you create, maybe you're a chef, whatever it is that you do, make time to do that, because that is part of your mental health as well. But Lisa and Toddy, curious for you, this is huge for all of us. How are you leaning into this? What ahas are you having? How are you navigating for yourselves?
I just want to say I completely agree on the EAP. You know what it makes me think of? We are learning professionals. And so we're constantly trying to enable people to be able to reach a goal. And in order to reach that goal, learning gets involved by saying, okay, well, what skills do you need to be successful? I mean, it's the same thing. It's the EAP idea and having more people to talk to. It's like an extension of this, like almost like more buddies to brainstorm with. It's about getting skills so then reach your goals. And sometimes we don't already know exactly what to do. If we knew exactly what to do and how to get through it, certain things, we'd already be there and then we wouldn't need any help. But so I think it's really valuable to pick up those skills. But to answer your question, I think that, another thing that I have found that it's been useful is instead of just like going, because I think that's a trap that I personally fell into during this time for a while. I said yes to a lot, everywhere, at home, everything. I can do it, I've got it. And I'm juggling a million balls in the air. And a previous coworker at a previous company said to me, in life, we're all juggling balls, tons of balls all the time. And you really have to decide, like, you can't juggle so many. At some point, you have to put some down. So you have to decide, if you drop one of these balls, which one is made out of rubber, which one won't break, and let them bounce, because it's just too much. It's too much to juggle. If something's glass, fragile, of course, prioritize that. But, so in relearning, like this new world that we move in, in this very different year compared to previous years, I've had to refigure out the recipe of what prioritization meant to me. And I had to remember to stop deprioritizing myself, because that's so often what happened. When I perceived that I was needed in lots of different places at home or whatever responsibilities in front of me, me last. And I wish I hadn't. I wish I could go back in time and stop eating so much fast food or, whatever. But it's a good reminder for me to prioritize me. So I have to deprioritize the things that are okay to be deprioritized, so I can reprioritize me.
Yeah. No, I had to compartmentalize too. I started out, I think, pretty well with the pandemic, because I've worked at home for a long time, so that work transition was actually better for me, because all of a sudden I had people who were doing the same as me, and they understood better that, hey, I need to add her to the meeting. They would forget about me when I was working from home. But, I did really well until all of a sudden I wasn't. And again, it was that like hitting the wall. And, I think I got through the first year before I hit the wall early this year, and started having panic attacks, just full out, couldn't breathe panic attacks. And, again, had to find ways to build my own network, and I realized I wasn't reaching out to friends. I wasn't talking to anybody except those who were negative. There's a few negative, Nellies in my family. And so I had to act, like you say, let go of some things, which one of those was to let go of the family that is negative. And I still talk to them, but, I compartmentalize it and keep it in check. But then to reach out to friends that make me feel like, I'm doing the right things and, can remind me that there's more to life than, just the pandemic, because, that's my family talks about it all the time. My family of origin. But I also had to seek therapy, and I had to say, hey, what do I do when I can't catch my breath? Like, that's hyperventilating, and it's like I got to a point where, I had a couple of health things that were minor, but even just going to the hospital, which was minor, I would have panic attacks walking in. I couldn't breathe, that kind of stuff. So you really have to put yourself first, and so I figured out how to deal with that and, how to work through that level of stress. And I've definitely put the priorities, I think, where the priorities need to be. I go for walks almost every day, like 3 miles, because I need 3 miles to work it out. I do run too. I do some trail running because I need that as well. But the last few months I've made that a really big deal, eating right, because I wasn't eating right either. It's whatever they said you can gain a pound over all of COVID. Well, I did. I'm 17 pounds. So I'm working on it. I'm trying to lose those, but we just, I think, again, don't put ourselves first. So,
and here's the thing. We know we need to do these things. Yep. And it's so much easier said than done, right? And so we have to give ourselves grace.
Yeah.
And at the same time, find people in our circles, however you want to interpret that, in our support works that we can be honest with, and that we can ask to help hold us accountable in the way that we want to be held accountable for the goals that we want to achieve. But that requires us to do some self-reflection and deep thinking about what is it that we want to achieve. And today it might be one thing, and if next week or 6 months from now it's different, that's okay.
Yep.
We're constantly evolving. And the last year has been full of so much uncertainty and so much volatility that just giving ourselves grace to navigate through that when we don't know, that's okay too.
Well, and I don't know how you've managed it, because I know, you both have been fully employed, but to have the family changes and to have job changes and to have a whole new scenario at the workplace. And I assume you're probably working with, pretty extensive teams at work. Like, I don't know how you've managed it, because I'm kind of a lone wolf when it comes to what I do. It's me and some SMEs that just refuse to help me right now. That's nothing new in this field, but it's a different type of thing than because I used to manage a department at Sierra Nevada Corporation, where, I had an entire team that depended on, what I did. I'd have to get something ready for them to start doing what they needed to do. It was all very process oriented. And I can't even imagine doing something like that right now. I just can't. So
day by day, right?
Exactly.
You have a vision for where you need to go, and you make sure that you're clear on where you need to go. And sometimes that changes, and that makes it really tricky. But it's ultimately day by day. And actually, things at Microsoft are really matrixed. I don't think that's totally unique, but it's like to the nth degree. And so, I actually did stakeholder mapping recently and went, wow, like I knew I worked with a lot of people, but wow, that's mind blowing. And, you think about then all the responsibility tied up in that. It is complex. It is a lot. And at the end of the day, the way I boil it down is, I need all of them to be successful. For me to be successful, I need them. And for them to be successful at some level, they need me. So it's a partnership. Yep. And it has to go well beyond the work. And it goes to those relationships that we build, because that's everything. And I think those of us who work in this field in general, right, we know that.
Definitely.
Engineers, they don't always quite see it the same way, right? That's okay. We're all different for a reason. But that's how I think of it. I think together we are better. But more isn't always better. So how do we right size our interactions when time is at a premium? Not only our working time, but the personal time that we need to spend with our families. I'm homeschooling my kids, right? And every day that balance is a little bit different.
It's like Tetris.
I've learned to ask for what I need. And that's been that's hard. It's hard. I've been really fortunate. I've been able to actually get some time off to homeschool the kids. Now, the reality is I still work a full-time job. Reality is, I still work on a Sunday or on an evening to kind of make it all happen, right? It's this weird, I feel like I'm doing Twister most days, right?
Exactly.
And it is what it is. I know it's not forever. And so I find that things, I think we've all sort of heard of that analogy of like what fills your bucket. I have to keep focused on what are the things that give me energy and what are the things that are draining my energy. And that's how I sort of approach my days. And when that energy is getting too low, I'm either doing too much. I need to maybe negotiate some deadlines, ask somebody else to help me with something, right? How many of us would say, oh, I'd love to do it myself. Lisa, that goes to your whole, saying yes to everything, right? We can't say yes to everything. And we have to ask people for help. And I am learning that actually that gives somebody else the ability to step in and flex their muscles. And actually that's development and growth for them. Or visibility, or right. It's a positive. It's not a negative. So there's tremendous growth, through that. But, curious from the two of you, how would you answer that question?
I love everything you just said, Laura, because when you're saying all of this, it's like in order to scale, in order to be able to do all the things you want to do, you need help. It's like capacity planning at work. It's the same thing even in our home lives. Exactly. And so sometimes I'm brainstorming with my family, like, oh my gosh, working a lot, doing, trying to juggle this, maybe to my house, I say, maybe we should stop trying to do all that landscaping by yourself. Maybe it's time that we finally give in and get a little help over there. Or probably one of the best things that I've done is for my 12-year-old daughter, teaching her how to cook. The more I teach her how to cook, the more she surprises me with like meals. Oh, look, Mom, I made you eggs, and she'll bring it to my office, and I'll be like, oh, you're such a sweetheart. Awesome. And, of course, that would have never happened if I hadn't taught her how to do it. Maybe some of this pandemic time, there's a few extra pounds because I taught her baking. And so I had to eat the cookies and the brownies and all the good stuff that she made. But I think to your point, Laura, it's not just about, not even just about what we need from other people, but how can we give to other people? Because I feel like that investment, comes back tenfold, and Tati, I know, you'll say the same thing, how awesome communities like TLDC is, because, thank goodness for each other. We're just a collection of humans that, we're in this same thing, common field. We're getting together, sharing best practices. We're here for each other. I mean, I bet you have mountains of things to say about that and the value of the networks and the people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I said it this morning. TLDC has honestly been a lifeline for me this year. It was finding my space in 2017. But now it's like, I have a hard time going, the week without having contact with somebody. And, I'm constantly texting somebody that's part of this network on a regular basis. And, I have other friends too, but I'd say that, a good half of the people that I would consider my friends, like my network and my friends, they come from this community, which is really amazing. And it's just, there's something innate, I think, about who we are, that we do want to see people improve. We want to offer suggestions. That's kind of the nature of what we do in this field. And so we're very supportive to one another. It's just been amazing. It really has. I mean, I've got other virtual communities that I belong to, but nothing like this. So, I don't know what I would have done without it. Who knows? But I'm really glad, again, I'll reframe it. I'm just really glad, I have this resource available. And poor Luis, he gets texts and emails from me all the time, not just on this event, but like all the time. I'll send him my favorite musician. And but it's been good. And you just do what you have to do. But the idea of having to scale back has been a really big deal in our lives too. Like, my husband's a do-it-yourselfer, and I think, Lisa, your husband is too. I finally convinced my husband that every time we hire someone to do something, that we're helping provide jobs. And I think that really resonated with him when I was able to scale back on some of the things like the lawn, like putting we put I'm trying to think, it was some new soffits on the roof. So, we had somebody do that. He's working on the upstairs. We hired a guy to do the drywall. That's, I feel like that's a really, because I am earning an income and so is he, that's a pass it along kind of thing. I can, give somebody that employment. So those are things that we've been trying to get him out of that do-it-yourself mindset too. So, and luckily he's not banging upstairs right now. So that's good. So. But do you have any tips at all? I mean, do either of you have
Yeah, I mean, I think so. In addition to the ideas of being optimistic and brainstorming with your buddies and deprioritize things so that you can reprioritize yourself, I'd say a fourth one would be, life hacks, how to create an organized foundation. And what I mean by that is, I feel like with all things in life, I feel like, in order to be really efficient and happy, and for me anyway, to have a sense of well-being, I need a sense of organization. So I'll give you, it's kind of like cooking in a dirty kitchen. Things are in the way, you can't find what you need. If your kitchen is clean, organized, wonderful, you're going to do a better job of cooking and doing things, in a nice way. So, I find that if I have really good organizational systems, it's every facet of my life. If I can think about with everything that I need to do, especially if I have to do an activity over and over, how can I be even more organized or leverage life hacks to help us communicate better? Or how can I leverage Alexa to remind me that it's trash night, all the little things that I, will miss because, there's a million moving parts and a million balls that we're juggling. And so constant invention. Do you do any of that? Does anybody do that? Can we even ask in the chat for people to throw in the chat, Toddy, yeah. Laura, what do you do for life hacks and
I have reorders automatically from a food service out of Los Angeles.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, it's my anti Whole Foods. So it's a more organic type of reorder. And so I have a reorder on things that I use. So I don't even have to think about putting this on my grocery list and running out for them. So, that to me is my version of a life hack. And I also have a reminder for the garbage.
So do I. Ours went out last night because I woke up. There was one day after we got, to California, last fall, and of course, trash day was different than what I was used to. And you woke up and you hear the trucks coming down the street, and it's like, oh my God, the trash! I think we've all been there. I'm loving some of the things coming up in the chat here. I'm a Post-it note girl. If you could see the desk right now, full of Post-it notes. So blue, by the way. I make up songs for the things. I love that. Okay, you're gonna have to teach us a good song, whoever wrote that one, because maybe I need a song. My 11-year-old loves to sing. Maybe I'll have her make up a song. But I leverage my kids. And, so my kids are going on 9 and just turned 11. And of course they grumble all the time, right? But here's the thing. They're home all day long and they have capacity and they are capable. So Mom's putting them to work, and I have reset expectations for them, and I reward them to bribery. But they do the dishwasher. They have to do. There's certain jobs around the house that they're in charge of that I don't have to worry about anymore. Right now, Lisa, I'm going to hire you because my kitchen does not look the way your sound looks. Walk into my kitchen
it's a work in progress. It's a daily thing, a daily reorganization,
never ending. So my husband's life hack is he eats everything off paper plates so that he doesn't have to do the dishes.
Oh, come on. You just need the dog to look at the
We don't have a dog. We have, here's a fun question to ask the audience. So we adopted a cat in November. I am curious, who else has adopted a pet during the pandemic? And tell us what kind of pet you adopted during the pandemic. I got a cat who is super high energy. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't need another high energy thing in my life. But super curious what pets people have adopted.
Golden doodles. 75-pound lab. That's a big dog.
That's not a lap dog.
Maine Coon Hound. Sweet. Oh, wow. I thought I was the only person who adopted. I adopted 2 puppies together.
I know so many people. And right, why have we done? Because we wanted that additional companionship in our lives, right? Exactly. It's part of all of us sort of moving through this just tumultuous period.
Yeah.
And so it's been like, for my girls, it's been really helpful. And now I get to nag them every day about, have you cleaned the litter? Have you changed the food?
I love it. Very cool. Yeah, Robin says she got a big whiteboard too, which I've been thinking about doing, just so that I have things visual. I think that's the instructional designer in us. We need to have a visual board. So, I mean, I
just butcher paper actually that we hung up, and I'm starting to put stuff up there, right? So same idea.
Yeah, that's cool. Excellent. Well, I know we're getting close to the end here. There's no Q&A, so hopefully, we answered everything. I want people to know where they can find you and connect. I mean, as crazy as it is, it might take all of us a few days to get back to people. But I mean, are you out on social media in case anybody wants to ask about, our survival skills?
How the cat's doing? I sometimes put photos on Instagram. The cat likes to sit on my neck, so got cat photos on Instagram. Yeah, I mean, you can find me through LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. I mean, I'm on most of the social places, although not Twitter. I get Twitter because I had, to Lisa's point of reducing and prioritizing, I had to let that
so many inboxes.
Too many places to check, but definitely LinkedIn is a great way to find me. Feel free to message. Happy to chat anytime about really anything. And if something that you guys want to ask in the chat right now, as before we wrap, happy to answer anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Lisa, what about you? How do we find you outside of Orlando? Do we just meet at Disney World? How does that work?
Actually, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Yeah, the lines are short. It's fun because we've got a couple of times because Florida residents get a great deal. And it's been really quiet. They handle the pandemic super well. Everywhere it's, all marked so that you keep your distance. It's all outdoors. It's all wonderful. So yeah, I highly recommend it, but I'm sure it's getting busy now with spring break. Anyway, yes, LinkedIn. Okay. I'm there.
Okay. Yeah, and I see the comment here about you guys need our emails to connect. So I just threw mine in. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, I threw mine in too. I actually haven't done that today. And actually,
just email. I mean, that works too.
A really relevant point about getting rid of social media, because I've done a lot of that this year too, to really slow things down, because it was driving me nuts. Mm-hmm.
It's funny out of it, right? I think that's part of all of our coping strategies. Sometimes we feel like we really need to know what's going on, and other times we've really got to step away. I also know too, right? Home all the time, kids around, kids aren't on stuff, and I don't want them to be anytime soon. And I have to really check myself. What behavior am I modeling? I'm like, my phone is like a third arm, right? And so it's for better or for worse. And so it's I've had a lot of those moments where I really have to stop and they help me hold up the mirror to myself and go, Mom, really?
Yeah.
So that kids are good for that.
Oh, so well, yes, it's a double-edged sword.
Yes. This is awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for being vulnerable and talking about, some of the things that we've all gone through, because, that's part of what we did this for, is we want to be able to inspire folks, to be motivated by the fact that we're all the same. We've all had a lot of these struggles. Some have had more struggles than others. Trust me, I've known some people with some really horrific situations this year. Yes. But, the other piece of that, too, is that we do need to build our networks. We need to be here for each other. We need to give each other grace. And I just think, that's something that, you certainly mold. And, that it just, changing our thinking, not watching news cycles all the time and, focusing on certain things and letting other things go. We talk about that at work, but we don't necessarily talk about it in our personal life. But now they're the same, right? So, but all good. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And
thanks for having us. This was great.
Thank you, Toddy. This has been wonderful.
Awesome day. All right, everyone.
Weekend, everyone.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.